Hello, you're listening to a recording on the internet. I am Todd Crawford.
I'm Maureen Crowley.
I'm Lexi Spino.
You're probably wondering right now, what is Todd Crawford? That's not what I go by anymore. I have two different pseudonyms I go by, so I'm going to not dead name myself. I go by Abandonment Issues for my writing, and my YouTube name is Hot Toddy. What is this respectable gentleman doing with the likes of a degenerate beast like Maureen Crowley after what's been unearthed with Longshot books? Well, have you seen the films John Wick? It's a trilogy. They're making a fourth and a fifth. There's a hotel in that franchise in which all the different hitmen meet up, and they cannot hit each other, as in kill each other, whack each other, as Italians might say. I'm part Italian, so I could say that. That's essentially
I'm
what
Italian. I'm an Italian handing of approval.
Thank you. You're offering me the pasta of approval, and so that's what this is. This is divorced mom and dad coming together for the kid in the school meeting with the parents. So we're gonna be civil.
For the record, I do not take one side over another.
Thank you, Todd.
That's funny because Lexi, you seem pretty fucking comfortable with Maureen when I joined the call. You guys are chatting it up. So I don't know.
It's because I'm not taking sides, Dad.
We'll save it for another time. But I'm not paying any
Beta
fucking
move.
child support. That's one thing Crawfords do not do.
Yeah, if anything, I owe you guys money.
So we're here to celebrate the third anniversary of the Electra complex. Lexi,
Yes.
I was hoping you would take it from there.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just put earbuds in. So I wanted to make sure the microphone was working. Yeah, February 8th marks the 3-year anniversary release of the Electra Complex. That Longshot books, or as I guess I'm saying, Mom and Dad now.
I prefer mommy and daddy, to be quite honest.
I do not.
Mama, fine. If that's more comfortable for you, call her mama.
Mama. Oh, Todd, I thought you were going by Mama.
I was.
We both were.
But yeah, I was like, found out that Longshot Books was Longshot and no more. And so I was like, we need to do like something, some type of like kind of farewell, but also the anniversary of the book release is coming up.
It's not a funeral. It's a celebration of life.
Right, exactly.
Well, the thing with a long shot is you could shoot the arrow as far as you want, but eventually it's got to hit the ground. I don't think that's just a scientific fact. I don't see the humor.
Right, and who cares?
Wait.
If it's a target, as long as it's something. We were never aiming for a target, in all fairness.
Is the arrow my book? Is like, what's the metaphor here?
The arrow is the logo for the company. That's
Yeah.
the logo is an arrow.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I forgot about that.
It's so funny because like I had people like text me like family because I come from like redneck town, and I'm not saying that like distastefully. I had a friend last week and I was partying with a friend and I kept calling stuff white trash, like Budweiser, which I'm drinking right now, and she's like, "It's not white trash, it's working class, Todd," and I'm like, "No, it's white trash."
No, that's. What does that have to do with arrows?
Oh, because people kept texting me when I got the arrows, or the company logo when we like debuted social media and it had the arrow logo, and like family saying like, "Where did you get inspiration for the arrow? Where'd that come from?" And it's like, honestly, it's just long shot. I don't fucking know. It's just like that seemed applicable, I guess. I mean, honestly, if we called it Long Dick Books, it'd be a boner. Like, it just sounded like it fit in with the title. You didn't inspire this. I'm sorry.
I mean, it was like whatever the guy on Fiverr could give us,
Yeah.
and we just went with it.
And I do want to say I fought for long dick books very hard.
No.
I was
do
really
wanna
championing
say,
that title.
I probably would have been even more stoked if Long Dick Books was the publisher.
Rock hard
Of,
books.
of,
That's
Yeah.
like just passable enough. It doesn't sound like erotica. It's like that's badass books. Rock hard. That's gonna be the next company.
all I can think of is the Walk Hard movie.
Oh my
Walk
god, I
Hard.
love that movie. That is one of the funniest, most underrated movies of all time.
It's so good. The scene with the Beatles is probably like one of my favorite scenes in a movie ever.
One of my favorite jokes ever in any movie, I swear to God, like top 10 movie jokes ever for me, is when he's in the apartment with his wife and the kids, and it cuts from him in high school when he meets her at the barn dance to him being in the apartment, and she's like, Dewey, you're a failure. And he's like, I don't know, I got a wife, 5 kids, my own apartment. I think I'm doing pretty good for a 13-year-old. And it's like in that John C. Reilly, like that just killed that, and I don't know, I'm cut in half pretty bad, Dewey. It's just a masterpiece. It is absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, it's definitely it's up there. So Step Brothers.
Yep, Step Brothers
Like
is a
all
classic.
that was the time period where comedy was like starting to actually make a comeback. We need another really good like comedy movie right now.
I have a theory that Judd Apatow is an Anakin Skywalker of comedy, where it's like, you were the chosen one. You could have saved us. Where he's producing like these fucking hysterical movies, and they were so good, and he had this whole crew of all these comedians that were great, and then like he just like turned to shit, and he's like, yeah, you know, John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell and Ant-Man and all these other people are great, but you know who else is great? Lena Dunham, Amy Schumer. And it's like, no, Judd, what are you doing?
I'm gonna stop you right there, bud. Amy Schumer's all right.
I actually think I would defend her early years. I think she was actually pretty decent early on.
I'm currently reading Matthew McConaughey's biography, and
I was gonna do
I'm
like
dis-
the worst joke, the most obvious one, but I'll spare
Right.
you.
well, I was about to be. I'm disappointed in the lack of all rights that are written throughout the book.
That is the joke. That is like, I'm reading the new Matthew McConaughey book. Oh, how is it? All right, all right, all right.
All right.
Say that he was driving a Lincoln before it was cool, like he was in school.
I did in a Matthew McConaughey impersonation, and I'll just out him because I don't think it matters. It's public information. Dr. O'Leary's class in college. He was asking something about like a deep question, like why do we consume art? And remember those Lincoln commercials with Matthew McConaughey where he's like kind of rubbing his fingers together as he drives for some reason? He's like, I just like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
It was like a meme. Jim Carrey like impersonated on SNL, and it was a big like viral thing. Well, he is asking that kind of
What
question.
is
And
Jim Carrey definitely is a viral.
I was like rubbing my fingers together like McConaughey in the commercial, and I was like, I just like the way it makes me feel. Complete silence in the room, and Dr. Lear's like, what? And this guy, like, Lexi, I totally respect. My favorite teacher in high school told me, he said, you have to take every one of this professor's classes. He is the most brilliant, funniest person on earth. So I really wanted to impress him. And he was a funny guy. So I was like, oh, he'll get this joke. And he's just like, what? And I was like, I was doing Matthew McConaughey. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, in the commercial in the car. It was probably the hardest I've ever bombed in my life. I have nightmares about how unfunny it was.
If it's any consolation, I think it's funny.
Thank you.
I do too.
You're welcome.
Now in my future dreams, you guys are going to be in the classroom and you're going to be laughing.
And you'll be like, but I didn't even say anything. Why are you laughing?
Oh no, they're laughing at me.
Yeah, it'll turn into a completely, entirely new nightmare.
Well, speaking of which, I've been having lucid dreams ever since I got COVID. And my most recent lucid dream it's 50-50 between horrifying and awesome. And the most recent one, I was in Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson, and I became lucid
Wow.
during it. Yeah, and he did it in my dream, and we had a conversation. I was like, Owen, what I love about your WoW is that you don't just say it, you rev it up. There's always like, wow. It's almost like how Trump talks. Like you kind of like do like a little bit of a purr when you start up. You're revving up the WoW before you fully engage with it. And that's this key to what makes your WoW so great. And then we wrote a dragon. 100% true.
This sounds like a Tommy Cash music video right now, and I love it.
I like Tommy Cash. I'm a big Charlie XCX fan, so naturally I like Tommy Cash.
Fucking love Tommy Cash. So we're talking about nightmares. This seems like a good segue into one of my poems. Talk about like seeing famous people in your dreams. One of the poems that I have in my book, The Electra Complex, is a Bukowski nightmare. And anyone who has talked to me or knows my work knows how much of a influence like Bukowski is on my writing. And so I had a dream one time that he showed up because I had been spending like the entire week just reading fucking Bukowski poems because I was definitely depressed and needed therapy. So I was like, in my dream, I was just sitting there and he just showed up and Bukowski'd out on me. And then like I woke up and then my writer's block went away. So like this whole poem in this book is actually what happened in my nightmare. It's not metaphorical,
so it's
really
almost
at
like
all.
Bukowski was like your Virgil.
Kind of. A little bit. I also have an actual like Virgil candle with Nicolas Cage on it.
I meant Virgil
But-
Abloh, of course.
I
Rest in
don't know.
peace. He was the director of Off-White, and he worked for Balenciaga. No, it wasn't Balenciaga. It was shit. I'm too drunk to remember. Great fashion designer.
Well, all it
I'm a
took
huge
was
fan of that guy.
one Budweiser, and Todd is done.
Louis Vuitton. Yeah, I cracked open a bottle. I had one sip. And this is
It's fucking done. I hope you're not driving anymore.
yeah. No, I pulled over. Some cop was pissing me off, flashing his lights behind me. I couldn't see.
So, but before I read this one, I will say two things. One, this actually references one of his poems about women sticking knives in men's backs, like literally, not metaphorically.
Real quick, that's really funny you mentioned that, and I'm into this whole thing called logos, which is the Christian concept of like seeing God speaking to you in symbols in life, and you mentioning that as logos. Because the most recent thing I wrote it's called T-pose, which is in a video game when a character is in T-pose, it means your arms are stretched out, so it's like they're crucified. So it's referencing the digital age with that. It's referencing Christ's crucifixion, but also my name begins with T. So it's kind of about how you feel as though you take other people's sins upon yourself, and you kind of crucify yourself for what other people do to you. And also because of the digital age video game thing, it's not real. It's fiction, but you're self-crucifying over this virtual thing. And it ends with a girl describing, because the whole story is setting up a guy who's trying so hard to impress her, and it's so much about him trying to impress her that it becomes about him proving himself more than it becomes about loving her. Therefore, she rejects him. It's about that ego of abandonment issues.
Oh, yeah.
And the final section of it, she's describing all the guys that she's fucked since rejecting him. And how, like, each dick, like, each time that it, like, penetrates her, it's like another knife in the guy's back. And that just reminded
Are you
me of that.
comparing my poem to shoving dicks in somebody's back?
Kind of, yeah. It's all penetration.
All right. Maureen, I'm on your side now.
I feel discriminated against just as a man.
It's very, very man of you to take something serious of mine and just be like, ah, dicks.
Yeah, beta. Just kidding.
Every Freud said something. I think his famous quote is "Everything is dicks."
Just another dick going into your back. Just kidding.
Like
every day I
always,
wake up,
such
and
a
every
fun.
day another dick's going into my back.
But nice segue there, Todd. I'll give you that. That was a nice
You're
little
welcome.
aside. The other thing that I was going to say though about this is I recently posted a performance video of it on my TikTok, so you can actually find me doing a like reading performance video thing
And
of
Lexi,
this
what
one.
is your TikTok for our audience?
It is Poet LS. There's a little like underscore in between poet and the L, and you got like the periods where the periods are supposed to be.
Because our audience is particularly illiterate, can you please spell it out for them?
POET underscore capital L period capital S period.
Thank you.
That is also my Instagram name.
Yeah, we'll link it down below.
Yes,
in the
of
comment.
course. Can
In
we
the
link
description.
TikTok? I don't know how TikTok. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how TikTok works.
You don't know how TikTok works?
I made a TikTok because I went the username TikTod, and it was taken. But I did make it, and I couldn't navigate it. So I literally don't know how it works. But I will link it if I can.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
I have a TikTok. I post on TikTok, and I still couldn't tell you how it works.
Yeah, I have no idea.
So I hate social media. Like, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
like discussion.
Those dang kids.
So anyway, so this is a Bukowski nightmare. Bukowski showed up in my dream last night. Sat down as an old man, lit up a cig. He laughed at me. Laughed and laughed a good 5 minutes, then gritted his teeth and clicked his tongue and said, "Little girl, you haven't sharpened your knife in almost half a decade." I felt the twinge of the two knives in my back, digging slightly deeper after his words. One of my own doing. Well deserved, well placed. I stayed silent as he laughed again, then stood up wild, grabbed my shirt collar with big, fully open cartoon eyes. "Don't you see it?" he exclaimed, spitting on my nose. "You have to see it." Then he slowly let me go. His eyes went back, which was nice. Cartoon didn't suit him. Sitting down, he asked for a glass of whiskey I managed to magically make appear and hand to him. He sipped slowly, like he knew he hadn't much time left. He knew to enjoy this. "Doesn't burn like it used to, does it?" he asked. Then I cried with my back to him, showing my knives as he whistled. I woke up after that. "No, it doesn't," I answered to the dark silence. "But at least I'm writing again." I could hear the faintest whistling as I faded back to sleep. Snaps.
I was clapping first. So in the whole custody battle, I mean,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I was quick to the draw, so it seemed more real.
It was almost like he was more prepared to clap to get brownie points than to actually praise the child.
Yeah, I think so, Todd.
That's fucking woman talk. That's dads know. We have that like panther-like instinct. I mean Dylan Panther, not the animal, of course. But no. Thank you for that reading, Lexi. And I want to ask you, what is your favorite Bukowski poem or just work in general? I'm curious.
So Factotum is my favorite work of his.
Mm-hmm.
Which there is a movie I watched. I ashamedly watched the movie before I ever read the book. but the book is just as good. It's a lot heavier in the sense of like we all knew Bukowski wrote some pretty grotesque content from time to time.
Yeah, I actually like the Factotum movie a lot, though. To give it credit.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so
Yeah,
good. Like what they kept exactly what they needed to from the novel itself, and they stuck to exactly
Matt
like what.
Dillon's like he's like kind of a pretty boy actor. I always felt, but I actually liked him in that role. Shockingly, I was really
Yeah, he
surprised.
and what's her face? She like
Aunt
actually,
May,
yeah, she freaking
Marissa
stayed drunk
Tomei.
on on set, like for the whole thing, so that even during the scenes where they like weren't drinking, she still had that like kind of air of an alcoholic to her.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
I love
like the
method
book a
actors.
lot. My personal favorite is Post or not Post Office. That's a lie. I just fucked the names up. Ham on Rye, because I think that is like the skeleton key to Bukowski with his childhood trauma, and I think it's just one of the funniest books ever. I
I
think
have
it's
not gotten that one. I haven't read that
yeah,
one.
it's different than his others because he's a kid through it. It's like his childhood, but that explains the rest of his career. And it was the first one I read, so that's a factor. But Factotum is one of my favorite books that I own because I have this version of it that's just kind of like a different cover that's very abstract, and I just love my physical copy of that book
Yeah,
so much.
it's a journey while
Yeah.
also while also not being a journey at all. Like it's literally just this one section of this like Mr. Nobody's life kind of feel. And not to get confused with the movie Mr. Nobody, which is a whole other thing. Um, but it's I just really really like the idea of a story, but not even a story, because like you get brought in right in the middle of this like fucker's life, and you just get shown a brief part of it, and it just kind of like ends there. And it definitely has a beginning and an ending, but it's just this like one little like piece.
I never thought about
And
it this way, but how you describe it, it's kind of Joycean with like Ulysses, where it's like this whole epic 800-page story, but it's just two guys that get drunk and go to the bar and have a good night.
yeah, and it's I don't know, it's just really cool. And like as far as I know, none of his books. Well, there is Barfly that also brings Jan into it, so maybe there is like kind of a quote unquote like sequel or prequel or whatever. Um, but there's just it's and his whole like if you're going to try, go all the way, otherwise don't even start. Like there's just something about that like little piece of writing of his that's in Factotum.
We
Um,
talked before we started recording about the concept of just putting everything on every moment and living recklessly, where it's like almost on pure instinct, like an animal, where it's like life or death every moment, and that's when you feel the most alive, is putting it all on the table. And how do you think that? Do you think that's a part of your art, or do you think it's reflected? Because it's very confessional. It's very visceral.
oh yeah, definitely. And I definitely have pieces that are very animalistic, but um, yeah, there's that whole idea of I would say I live less like live every moment like it's a life or death situation, and more in the sense of like what Bukowski was saying. Like if you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start, because it's like what would be the point of me even trying to start a poetry career if I wasn't willing to go, you know what I mean? Like the farthest mile and then some with it. Like if I wasn't willing to sleep on park benches for the sake of my art, and then why would I do it? Which to some people that sounds insane, but to me, I'm like that makes sense. I'd fucking sleep on a park bench just to be able to write a poem.
And have you had like reactions like after your shows with people talking about the effect that has had on them, or even this book, just general readers?
I yeah, I've had many people walk up to me after. I mean, I think I've talked about this one moment in particular before in a podcast, but the first punk show I ever opened up for was a basement show in Manayunk, Philadelphia, and I talked about having borderline personality disorder before one of my poems, and a guy came up to me, and we ended up talking for like 40 minutes at this house punk show, like at the table, because he a week prior had gotten diagnosed with borderline, and he was talking about just like how scary everything had become, and like he was a wreck over it. And then he heard me talk about it, and he heard my poem about it, and there was just something that helped him in that moment accept this diagnosis and not be so like scared. And that was one of probably the biggest moments in my career so far for me. It meant a lot, and I loved just like sitting there and like helping this guy work through, stuff that was absolutely terrifying for him up until that point.
That's awesome. It's really cool you have that connection.
It's really powerful.
Maureen, if I can trust you with this much, I have to go to the bathroom. Can you? I know you have some questions prepared. Are you capable of asking that in the meantime? Will you
Sure.
not like reject any books or any fucking bullshit as I'm gone?
No, as long as you're not.
It's a good thing this one's already published.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God. Because like, let me tell you, if it's good, she's like, no, no thanks. But
we only publish trash here at Long
apparently,
Shit.
yeah. All right, I'll be right back. Lexi, try to guide the conversation and keep this shit afloat, please.
So, but I wanted to ask, since it has been 3 years, like wild since we've done the Electra complex, and since it's been released, what are your thoughts on this project? Looking back on it, from where you are now to how long, like how life was back then, or how you felt about the project leading up to it, how you felt after the release, and how you feel about going on tour now. Like, what are your thoughts on your experience as a whole with this project?
I mean, it's kind of crazy. When I was thinking back on it, and I actually like reached out to Todd about doing like a podcast or something for it for the 3 year, because it almost feels like it was just published in a lot of ways to me. And then in other ways, it feels like it's been more than 3 years since I even released this book. And I think this is the first like project where like the writing as a whole combined has held so well. Like I can still go back and like look over this book, and it still has relevance to it, whereas like the one that I self-published before this, I go through it and I'm like, this is complete trash, like this doesn't even mean anything to me anymore. Whereas like this one, I'll flip through it every now and then and be like, this still really holds even years later. And I think there's something to be said about any kind of like piece of work that can hold over time like that. And I just hope that it continues to do that for the other people who have supported me so far and bought it. You know what I mean? That they too can just like kind of pick it up throughout the years and like skim through it or reread the whole thing, and there's still something in there that they can take from it even years later.
Now that I'm done puking, I did catch the tail end of that, and I think what it connects with people, and I think it's with all art. I think art really is artifice. It's fake. It's fiction. Even autobiographies, nonfiction is trying to capture reality. And I hate to use this example, but it's almost like a Horcrux in Harry Potter, where you're looking for that piece of vitality, that piece of life. And I'm serious. I truly mean this isn't a gag. But I think that what your work connects with people so strongly, and what makes it lasting, like you're describing, with readers, with myself, even with Maureen, probably, I would hope, is that you're kind of doing the Hemingway, like, sitting at the typewriter and bleeding. Like, there's humanity to it. It's raw.
I
I mean,
hate Hemingway.
I know you do, and I digress.
I have a poem in my book,
I know,
actually.
but you wouldn't have Bukowski without Hemingway. So you have to at least appreciate that, like, even if you don't like him, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just like there's a comic that makes fun of Hemingway, and it's one of my favorite like memes or whatever you want to call it, and it's just like Hemingway at a bar, and it's like her son died in the Cold War. In a way, he died in every war. I am so drunk. And then it's just his face, like, on the bar at the end. It's like, yep, that's Hemingway.
For me,
right there.
Hemingway wrote my favorite short story, probably, with A Warm, Well-Lit Place. That is a transformative story for me personally, but I think what's really interesting about him is that the masculinity, the brevity, that journalistic approach, so much of it seems to stem from him being, like, trying to overcompensate. Like, he used to wear dresses and stuff like that as a kid, and it's fascinating, this duality between his public persona and his private young life, especially, and the vulnerability and the suicide and the depression.
Well, and what's funny too is that Bukowski also shit on Hemingway, like, a lot, but they were friends. And I watched, there was like a special release of one of his documentaries that you had to buy like an online ticket for, and it was only showing on one app for like 24 hours.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah, of course I was there. Like, bought a ticket, and I had wine and everything. Like, I was like super like into it. And he had a picture in his hallway of Hemingway with no shirt on, like passed out on a mattress on his floor. Like, they hung out, they drank, they were buddies. Like, and honestly, I think that right there is just like one huge like window into the metaphor of writers in general, because like I could, well, no, because I'm sorry, but you would never, like, I shit on Rupi Kaur all the time, but you will never find me like, oh, yeah, and I got drunk with Rupi Kaur, and there's a picture of her that I keep in my hall. Absolutely not. But there's
and some of those people, like John Green, like, at least for me personally, they're just pieces of shit. They're shitty people. Like, I'm not saying Hemingway was an angel, but, like, they just seem inauthentic.
And I think, yes, and at least, like, if there's one thing you could say about writers back then, during, like, the beatnik generation, they were real.
Yeah.
Like, they did not hide any single part of who they were. Like, Bukowski is one of the most disgusting womanizers, like, ever. And he did not hide that.
I'm going to be honest. I bought his book, Women. I thought it was an instruction manual.
Well, jeez, Todd.
That's a really lame joke. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please use this break to refill your drinks or use the bathroom. You will be back after this brief intermission. It's just us beating the shit out of Todd in the background. But there is this undertone of camaraderie with, like, writers in general. That's what I was trying to get at. Because, like, even though Bukowski shit on Hemingway all the time, like, that was a fellow writer. He understood.
Well, I think I say this a lot.
So what you're trying to say, Todd, real quick, is I should be nice to Todd.
Can you repeat that, please? You cut out for a moment.
Oh, no, you're good. So what you're saying, Lexi, is I should be nicer to Todd and not reject his book. Is that what this is?
It's not my book. It's just a great book.
The book Tucker Carlson sent to us.
Well, no. Again, Bukowski shit on Hemingway all the time. Did not think he was a good writer, but they were friends behind the scenes.
Well, I think what I always say is, and I mean this. This is a moment of levity from the comedy.
My point remains justified then. Kidding.
No, it doesn't. So, yeah. So, in a serious note, what I always say is I've seen a lot of performances in Pittsburgh and Larry Writers. I don't really show up now because I just feel awkward with COVID. I just never got out of that COVID isolation to look for things to go to. But when I did years ago, I noticed the only people that would ever, and I hate saying this because I would never want to discourage someone from publicly reading, but the few people that I'd ever see criticize a reader or a performer was someone who would never dare get on stage and do so themselves. Everybody else who's ever held a microphone respects the reader, and they understand it.
Wait, respects the reader or the writer?
Both. The performer.
Yeah, because I was going to say, wait a minute. I definitely have gotten up and taken the mic, and I still shit on so many, so many people.
That's really fun.
But all right. Also, though, in defense, even more so with me just despising Rupi Kaur, she admitted that she does not read poetry. She has never read a poetry book. She does not pick poetry books up. She does not read poetry at all.
I mean, you're preaching the choir. Maureen and I, when we're at stores, we'll open one of her books or one of her ilk, one of that whole genre of new NU poetry. We'll open a random page and read it and laugh about it. We're not defending Rupi Kaur here.
Just so the audience is clear, we really hate Rupi Kaur.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say about Rupi Kaur. And if she's listening, which I know she is, hear me out.
She always is.
No, it pisses me. She comments hey, Todd, baby, you check out this poem. You'll like it. No, I won't, Rupi. Stop. And Taylor, get your fucking shit together. Midnights? Are you kidding me?
Seriously.
So here's my thing.
I'm gonna have to have a sit down with you and Taylor next time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a whole podcast just on Midnights and how heartbroken I am about it. It's a 2-hour podcast. 1 hour is just me crying. But
why, Taylor? Why?
Oh, she betrayed us so bad. After Folklore and Evermore, she fucking Anakin Skywalker all over, just like Judd Apatow. Who can you trust? But with Rupi Kaur, straight up, I'm driving down the road, someone's pulled over, they need a jump. Oh yeah, let me help you out. And then Rupi Kaur gets out. Thank you for pulling over. I just get right back on the highway.
I mean, she's not dying. She'll be okay.
Yeah, she'll write a fucking poem about it. Who cares?
Quote unquote poem.
She'll write a tweet about it.
She'll write 3 sentences, put it on a page, call it a day. Anyway, on having respect for other writers.
Yeah, other writers are great, yeah.
Yeah. It's not that one.
No, I forget what we were talking about. I just get so caught up on how much I can't stand. I call it insta-fluff. Insta-fluff poetry.
It sucks so bad.
That's what it is.
Because, they're all women. And there is, this sexist, undertone with hating those people that it's always I don't want to be that guy. But they suck so bad. There's, Sylvia Plath's my favorite poet.
Fantastic poet.
Yeah. So it's not as though I don't think women can write, obviously. Because I'm here with 2 women writers who are very talented, differences aside. But, holy shit. I always say, I think women are talented despite... the publishing house's best arguments against that.
Wait a minute. Was it a female or male who wrote the book that was rejected?
It was probably a really handsome guy. I get the
Oh.
vibe. Just the prose, the way it was written, it felt very like cocksure, very handsome, very cool.
Is that what you felt reading it? Maureen?
Yeah, she
Honest-
probably felt that and was intimidated by it, I would say.
I'm sorry. I asked Maureen.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for her, like, she probably was very impressed, and that's why she rejected it. She's afraid of success.
I said just because a woman does mean I can't speak for myself, Todd. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, best way I could say it is you went on and talked about a lot about like Mona Lisa and all that shit, and I think from our review I said that, you know, if this was a standard of art now, Mona Lisa would be crying. Like this. It was just not a good book. I was not impressed by it.
You weren't impressed?
No.
Well, that's
I
funny,
was
because
very-
a lot of blind people aren't impressed by a picture of the Grand Canyon. You know,
my
a lot of deaf people don't like Led Zeppelin, Marine. That doesn't mean it's not fucking great.
That's probably
Okay.
Led Zeppelin sucks. First off, secondly,
I'm actually not a Led Zeppelin
just-
fan, I'm going to be honest.
deaf people can still feel the vibrations of Led Zeppelin, and that's enough to
Exactly,
know that Led
Maureen.
Zeppelin sucks.
Disregard that, Marine.
No.
What was the title of the book?
Owl or Nothing.
Owl.
Yeah.
Owl,
It's
as in the whoo.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a book about a man who rescues. He finds a defenseless creature out in the snow. He takes it home. He thaws it out, and it's a living creature, an owl, and he falls in love with it, and it's beautiful, and it's genius. And anybody who can read would know that.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, with as many classic book and movie references it throws around, and how much like you talked about Michelangelo, I thought the book would read more like Casablanca, less like The Room.
Ooh.
You're convinced. You're like, oh, Maureen, you're gonna love it, and I'm like, no.
There's a thing in hip hop called like a shout out track. You know, like Illmatic does that at the very end.
Yeah.
And that's when the book is naming the other writers, it's basically renaming contemporaries, where like when it references, where it's like, oh yeah, Nabokov, or, you know, Hemingway, for instance, because we're talking about him, or fucking Shelley. Which Shelley? Mary Shelley or Percy? Both of them. He's listing his contemporaries. He's saying like, I'm amongst you, and he was right. Probably. I mean, I'm just like a reader. I wouldn't know, but like I would imagine he's probably right, because it's a brilliant work of art.
I mean, in the, I don't know. It seems like a weird thing because the book itself, verbatim, had the line like, "I'm brilliant enough to recognize my own genius," but
Yeah.
kind of like this pseudo modesty you've got going, or he's got going on.
Well, yeah. I mean, Picasso was smart enough to know that a Picasso painting was worth money.
No,
No.
no, no.
I don't understand. Is it opposite day?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so funny. I remember when I was 13.
Moving. on.
I don't know though, because so my old school like pen name that I used to go under when I thought nobody knew it was me, even though they all knew it was me, is like so my like screen name for stuff used to be Otter Worldly instead of Otherworldly, and I used to do O, like capital O period, capital W period, capital L period, and then EE. So it was like Owly. It was like Otterworldly.
Well, owls are symbols for intelligence.
And now we've got Owl or Nothing. Like I feel like somebody might have stolen some ideas from me.
Stolen? No, that's crazy that you think someone was.
So you're saying it's plagiarism?
No, she's not saying that. She's clearly not saying that. Here's my argument. Logos. This is
Oh my gosh, no, we're not doing this again.
yes. This is one big story, and this is God's story, and he's writing it with themes and recurring motifs, just like the classic composers. And Lexi's owl and the owl and owl or nothing. This is all logos. This is clearly God's work.
Oh god.
Yes, that's exactly what you say. Oh God, you are so brilliant. Thank you for dropping this masterpiece in my lap that I rejected.
So speaking of being completely insane, do we want to hear another poem?
Yes, please. I think that'd be a great change of topic.
Yeah.
I think I've proven my point to the listeners very clearly. So
No.
I think a poem would be a great way to celebrate that.
So this is another one from the Electra Complex. It's called Schizoidea. It's about being derangedly insane it's essentially about split personalities. But I got antsy one day and took the signs down. I suppose you saw that as an easy in. Although I couldn't get you for loitering, technically. I still kept tabs on you as you wandered through my mind palace, getting your fingerprints all over old case files and spell books. Watched you get pissed off at all the doors your lockpicking kit wasn't good enough for. Saw you slowly get more and more irritated each day you woke up and the layout had rearranged overnight. You found my library boring and spent too much time in the movie room. After a while, I suppose I realized you were no real threat, just more so an annoyance whose skills became handy from time to time. Abuse isn't always a mark on the neck. Sometimes it's a word placed in your left ear that within an hour causes the right one to start bleeding. I guess that's why I spent last New Year's indoors puking, not from a hangover but a concussion. And you spent it wondering what exact moment it was that caused the power outage that left you without memories. You were throwing thesauruses around my head just for fun. I wasn't prepared for the damage vocabulary could bring upon a mental frame. You weren't prepared for the emotions I could dig up from your graves. Fuck, we are just too damn clever for our own good. Next time, don't bring sausage to a fist fight. Stopping to eat in the middle only caused the situation to allow both of us out alive, and we always promised each other in this that one would never make it. How anticlimactic that morning when I finally decided you were of no more use to me, kicked you out, leaving you within the destruction of it all before you even came to. I'm not really sorry I didn't clean up after myself. I just didn't feel like going to the third floor where you left the broom. That's it. That's the end.
I was a little bit slower. That was more genuine.
No.
Thank you for that, Lexi.
Yeah. Thank you.
I remember this specifically. Of course, the line, don't bring sausage to a fist fight, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I remember that, but also you explained this to me in a previous podcast about you getting into an actual physical altercation with a man.
Yes.
I'm not going to name the man, but I remember this was one of the few
we
times
can
that
name
someone else
him.
made me uncomfortable. You can name him. I'm not going to out a bro, but
No, one of my best friends, he actually did the artwork for the book.
oh
Rainer.
God.
No, it was a consensual fight. It was
Mutual combat. The legal term
it was
is.
yes, it was a mutual combat. We very drunkenly just both looked at each other. I believe Diane was playing at the time, and just started going in. And then we stopped, and he was like, "I'm hungry," and I'm like, "Yeah, me too." And then he came back with sausage. And we ate, and then we went back to fighting. The moral of the story is I won that fight.
Yeah.
Because his head was bleeding at one point.
See, this is the kind of this is what I like about you as an artist. It's like I'm completely uncomfortable hearing this. Like I say fucked up shit, but I don't do fucked. I'm pretty boring. I'm pretty vanilla, but I just like try to cover that and like talking shit. But like I hear that and I'm like, oh my god. I don't even fuck drunk women, let alone fight them.
I was no, it was, I mean, it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't like already like one of my best friends. And we just had to fight it out. It was like bros. It was an alpha war. That's what it was. We looked at each other, and in that moment we were fighting to see who was the alpha in our friendship.
And you found that you were the alpha, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I can't comment because, like, if I say, like, yeah, like, am I endorsing fighting women? You know what I mean? And no, you should never fight a woman consensually. Is what I'm saying. It should only be non-consensual when they're not prepared. I'm joking. That's a joke. That's sarcasm.
Oh, fuck. This just took a turn.
Maureen, I think you have another question. I'm gonna go puke again. So take that question.
My gosh. So I guess another question I have is, do you feel that you've changed as an artist since the Electra Complex has come out? Like, do you feel that as you've produced new work, you've evolved in what your influences are, you've evolved in what your goals are, and if so, or if you've not changed, or if you've decided to stay true to you, like how has your vision of your work changed?
In a lot of ways, even though I definitely, like, I had self-published a book before the Electra Complex, I had done shows and everything. In a lot of ways, I feel like the Electra Complex coming out was my first, like, real step into finding the exact voice that I wanted to have. So really, sometimes it feels like this book kind of shaped itself, and the book is kind of shaping where I go next and what my art is next, more than like I kind of created the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was struggling before the Electra Complex at finding like what I wanted my exact like voice and my messages to be and everything, because I write obviously very, very heavy into like mental health awareness and being an advocate in that scene. And I have 2 shows so far on my tour where like donation money is going to go towards either like a nonprofit organization or a charity that has to do with something along the lines of like mental health awareness and just that area. And I think writing this book and putting it out was what I needed to kind of start me on the path of like what exactly I wanted to do, because I also had my funnier stuff and I have my stuff that's like more witchy and everything, and this book kind of helped me find a way to place all of them together under like one umbrella in like the same voice instead of feeling like I had to choose one or another. And it's opened up the door to like so many different opportunities, like this tour that I'm about to start, for example. Like I'm doing so many shows where I'm opening up for like different bands, like one that's huge. Like I'm still blown away. I don't think I'll fully process it until it's like the day of the show and the band's like on the stage and I'm like, holy fuck, like I just opened for these guys.
Can you name drop,
Like,
please?
Yeah, which
the Magwas.
How do you spell that? I want to make sure I'm familiar with them.
Maguas.
Thank you. I was thinking another one, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I met them because they opened up for the Spill Canvas in Philadelphia. Or no, sorry, not Philadelphia, Lancaster. And like I not really jokingly, but I just like was at the bar when one of the guys from the band was also at the bar, and I was like, hey, like that was awesome. If you guys are ever interested in having like a poetry opener, like I'd love to open for you guys. And he was just like, oh, hell yeah. And we ended up keeping in touch and actually like booked the show. And it's like this tour has kind of gone off from like there, where I've just started like hitting up more bands. Mainly it's most of the stuff is like more punk music. Because I do have that punk side of me, and I love opening for punk shows because I like have all of these emotions that I perform and people don't know what to do with it, and then a punk band comes on and they're just like, mosh, yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Do you have a tour stop in Pittsburgh, don't you?
I do. I'm gonna be there. um April 29th is when my show is in
Oh, that's
Pittsburgh.
awesome. 20. Can you text me that date? I'm gonna request off work for it,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
um
I don't live in
I'm trying.
Pittsburgh. For people on the internet that want to like find me and kill me or whatever, that's just like a totally arbitrary place that I'll drive to or take a plane to.
Oh my gosh.
Take a plane too.
Yeah, maybe if I have to. You know, it's your show. I do that. But oh, sorry.
I'm trying to get. I might actually have a show in State College on the way into Pittsburgh. I'll have to finalize stuff with that, and I'm trying to do. Still get. I think I was talking to you about this not too long ago, actually, where I'm still trying to find somewhere to do just an all poetry show while I'm in the area. But April 29th, I'll be opening for a couple of awesome bands. So, awesome punk bands.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Yeah, definitely keep us in the loop about that.
Yeah, for sure.
I will.
I'm glad you brought the tour up because I wanted to get to that about you know, because so much of it this is reflective and kind of nostalgic, but also I feel as though nostalgia is almost cynical, you know, because like it's always this sense of the past is better than the present or the future, but there's a very bright future with all this.
Yeah, and it feels nice because I was supposed to go on tour when the Electra Complex came out.
Yeah,
And then the lockdown happened.
I mean that was really like the. This is maybe poor phrasing, but fuck it. I mean, it was basically the 9/11 of long shot books. I mean, for real. Like, it was that level of, like, change. Like, we have, like, pre and post 9/11.
That should have been the logo instead of an arrow.
An arrow at the Twin Towers.
Oh. Oh.
I didn't say that. But the company's over anyhow, so fuck it. But seriously, like, I'll never forget that because, like, I remember your debut show at Pittsburgh was, I mean, it's great, but it was also one of the most stressful nights of both of our lives. Marina and mine, I remember us talking about, it's like, hey, do you remember, like, the Electric Complex, like, that debut show? No, I don't. Do you?
No.
Nope. And Lexi, you can attest we were both totally sober, but it was a blackout. It was that level of stress.
Yeah, we were very excited and, like, and I remember it was like we went to like Howlers, right? And it was just like constant like blackout stress the entire time. And for me, like I was so excited, I was just making myself stressed and
it went really well. I mean, the stress paid off, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you filmed half of it. There's like up still. There's a whole documentary.
That's one of the proudest things I've worked on.
So
I will have to say, Todd, even though we are fighting, you did do a great job on that.
Yeah, I mean, even though we're fighting, I have to agree. You're not wrong about everything.
She still does have good taste, I guess.
Yeah, I remember going to State College and filming that like interview
Speaking
thing.
of which, there's an elephant in the room, and I've been avoiding this topic for about a year. I asked about like I forget like your biggest inspiration or the band that you describe yourself with, and you said "Say Anything" and Max Bemis. And as a fellow former, I guess you could say anything Max Bemis fan, my nephew is named Max after him. Holy shit. I thought brand new fans had it rough when the Jesse Lacey stuff came out. Wow. Did that guy
I
fall off?
well, it's funny because I said say anything,
You did,
and
yeah.
um, but I think I panicked because really it would be it'd have to be law dispute or listener.
That's a much safer answer.
I I think I panicked during that interview. It was like and I like been listening to say anything like more like that month than usual. And it was just like say anything's pretty cool.
I mean, they were my favorite band for the longest time. I just, after hearing all the shit that's come out about Max and his family, it's just like the most sad, depressed. Like, I wish them the best. You know, he didn't, to my knowledge, rape anybody or hurt anybody that way. But, like,
I'm out of the loop.
good. Stay out of the loop. Because it is horrible. It is the saddest, most demoralizing shit. Because it used to be, like, my idol. And now I look down on him. Like, I feel bad for him. And it's not, like, hateful. It's just pathetic. It's just like, dude, please get your shit together.
I'm looking it up right now.
Look up Bemis Family Snark on Reddit. It's a closed group, but like it's people like follow their Instagrams and shit, and like how they like. I don't want to say much on like public YouTube, but like how they are with their children, and it's just horrible. I mean, it's absolutely terrible.
I'll get deeper into this.
Yeah, remind me when I'm sober, and I'll send you links. You
Go
can
and
get up
drop
on
the
the
rap.
snark. You can check out the goss with me and all the girls.
um, but no, I'm I'm glad that you brought that up though, because really, Law Dispute is probably like my biggest influential band when it comes to that, and I finally got to see them live last year for the first time ever, and that was such a like almost religious like experience for me.
Especially after lockdowns and everything, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be like much more cathartic.
It was, and I went like my friend was the one who surprised me with like tickets and like paid for like the Airbnb in Philly and everything, and I was like, this is so much fucking money, like I can't believe. And it was general admission, and I ended up like right in front at one point, just like watching them do their thing, just standing like right at the front of the stage. Like I was blown away, and I was like, this is what I want to fucking do. So it definitely, I think, helped kick me back in gear as far as like setting up tour and everything also.
Do you feel a special pressure to almost prove yourself when you're opening for bands as a poet?
Not so much anymore. Whereas I spent, so this year marks 10 years of me doing poetry, like outwardly in general. And I spent the first 5 years fighting for poetry and music to be on the same bill as each other. And then I did my first ever like punk house show, and I felt like in that moment, yeah, I had to prove myself. But ever since I did that show, I've been like, I've already proved that I can do this.
That's
I don't need to
interesting.
prove
It's almost like a
myself
personal
anymore.
narrative, right? You've proven it to yourself, so you don't need to prove it to anybody else anymore.
Yeah, like well, that, and it just went over so well, um, that I just could go on with confidence whenever I booked somewhere to be like, trust me, like this is gonna be fine. Like you just need to trust me. And I tell every venue that gives me the chance, like I will take care of booking the bands for them so that they don't have to worry about doing that legwork. And that's worked out really well too.
Cool, because that's another whole factor is like not only the bands that you're opening for and the audiences, but the venues themselves and trusting you with that position.
Yeah. And it's I've made so many awesome connections, and I'm also working on an album while I'm touring.
And is this like
Uh,
an audiobook type situation, or is there going to be music and like an
it's going to
album?
be music. So, what a couple years ago we did like an interview thing,
Hmm.
and I told you that I was going to be working on an album
And that
next.
was a lie.
And that, well, it wasn't at the
No,
time,
I'm joking.
but it ended up being a lie because it was supposed to be a collaboration album, and I just could not make anything line up or work. Like,
I worked on
and
movies. Like it's impossible to get like, especially once you're at a college age, to get 5 people in a room together for one day. That's like asking for a miracle. That's like winning the
yeah,
lottery.
and as far as like the recording of it and putting it all together and everything, I was like, I can't just use one like studio and have all these people, like you said, like come in that weekend, you know what I mean, and like do this. Like that's not gonna work. And then you have to pay to rent out the space. And I was like, all right, I'm going about this like all wrong. And I put it on the back burner, and then it ended up just being on the back burner for a couple of years. And now it's like finally slowly coming together and working out like around this tour. I am doing a collaboration with a couple of different bands. Um, One I'm meeting up with the last week in February. I have off completely of work, and I will be meeting up with one band, Heaven's Gate. That's actually a shoegaze band, and we're doing a remix of There Is No Moral to This Story from my EP from forever ago.
May I ask what that means? A remix to a poem?
So I did a spoken word EP that I put out that's been on Spotify since 2016. And we're taking the one There Is No Moral to This Story, which is the only full band one that I recorded on there. I did the bass for it actually, and I had a couple of friends come over to the basement I was doing the recording at, and like called them up like that night and was like, "Yeah, you want to like put drums to this track for my EP?" And it was a very last minute put together, and I will be in Salisbury, Maryland last week of February working with the Shoegaze band, and we are going to be doing a completely remastered version of that, but it's not going to sound at all like the one that was on the EP.
Cool. Are you able to name drop, or are you keeping a secret until the announcement? Like when it
The
drops?
band is called Heaven's Gate,
Oh, you did
if
mention
that's
that. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I thought you meaning like the name of the new album. Todd, sorry.
Oh, the name of the album is going to be Hobo Sapien.
I love it.
It's the idea of like, because there's going to be so many different like artists and bands and stuff that I'll be like collaborating with that's going to go on this album. So it's just this concept of not really belonging in any one place.
Oh, that's really cool.
I'm excited, but I mean, I'm trying to also not get too excited because there's so much that can happen between now and then that could make this
Yeah.
another lie.
No.
That could be a cool name for an album as well. Another Lie. That sounds like a Alanis Morissette album or something.
It's true.
Maureen, I think you had 3 questions prepped.
No, that's all I had. You guys answered already 2 of them as we've been talking, and I think
Oh.
I asked some 2 others. So
Yeah.
yeah, you guys beat me to it.
I did want to do one more poem, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Of course.
So, the tour is called the Exit Here Slowly tour, and I wanted to do the poem that line comes from. And we mentioned earlier about like how I'm a mental health advocate and suicide awareness and everything, and this poem is definitely a more like darker, more serious subject. It is about a friend of mine who had killed themselves in the past, and I'm going to read the poem first and then I'll kind of explain the meaning of the sentence. But this is on Dan for apartments 666 and 668. Bleached out countertops, stains of hair dye never quite washed away, awkward strands of hair lining shower walls. Exit here slowly and take a final look. You will leave things here, solid things, actual pieces of you left behind with the memories. Bleached out brain top, stains of rusted safes never clean, finally moved, awkward strands of hair lining shower cheeks. Exit here slowly. So the whole idea of exit here slowly is kind of a way of saying like take your time to actually live while you're alive, while you're here. Exit this world slowly instead of jumping to conclusions, so to say.
I don't know if you knew this, Lexi, but Longshot Books was not originally, but like after a brief period of time, when it was early on, it was originally a 3-piece, and in I think 2022, one of the person that we took under our wing that was going to be one of the 3, he had problems and distance. He passed away very young as well, and pretty much like a lot of my work the past year or so since has been about the survivor's guilt from that.
I did not know that whole story. No.
Yeah, we don't really talk about publicly because out of respect for privacy for the family and stuff. I think that much is
Right.
okay to say.
Yeah, it's become a very important message for me, and I liked the idea of once I finally was starting to get like a good amount of shows together, and it looked like it was actually going to be a real like mini tour, calling it the Exit Here Slowly, and like just taking that little piece with me at each venue I go to and everything, just as kind of like a reminder.
Right, and not just for you, but for the audience as well.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many people out there struggling with so many different things, and it's just you never know.
For sure, it's well, it's almost hard to discuss. It's almost too real to put into words.
Yeah, I mean that is the struggle as an artist, as a writer. Like, and sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to be like too blunt about it, but if you're too metaphorical, then you're like, is this even actually really addressing the issue? Or like it's definitely like a hard topic to like write about or talk about.
I would say it's a tightrope walk where people are throwing tomatoes at you.
I want to perform a show so bad where people are throwing beer cans at me and booing me off stage.
You said
Like
you're performing in Pittsburgh.
I
can
know.
Make it happen. I got to get rid of these Bud Light cans somehow.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I'm serious. It would be a dream to like
Like the
book a
Runaways.
show somewhere. Yes, the Runaways. Ugh. Talk about freaking like bands that are huge, like inspiration stuff. Like the Runaways, man.
Yeah, I think so much of not just what you do, but the Electra complex and the long shot books, whatever you want to call it, the ending of it, the suicide of it, whatever. It's so much of it is about taking negative input and creating a positive output, where it's saying this could be a negative thing, this could be destructive, but I'm not going to let it become this. This is going to be inspirational. This is going to be positive and healthful and life-giving. And I think that's the theme of the podcast, is taking all these negative things and saying, I can convert the negative into a positive. It's alchemy.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and I also think there's a lot of there's community and shared experience, and like Lexi, you had said at the very beginning, many people had come up to you after shows and like pulling parts of the book out and saying like what really resonated with them. And I think, sometimes, yeah, you can't. I might have a feeling I might not be able to put into words, but if I read like a poem or I see a piece that really speaks to me in a way, I think there's something so impactful about that. That's why works like these are truly important.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree. I have my, like, authors and artworks and, like, poems and stuff that do that same thing for me. That, I mean, when I saw Andrea Gibson perform, because they're one of my all-time favorite poets, like, I felt such a huge, like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like, you understand me, you get me, like, kind of feeling. And I think like that's a huge part of why I do what I do, is to help people feel less alone. And if even if it's just one person at one show each time, then I mean at least I accomplished that. And I do think there is a little bit of something in the Electra complex for everybody.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what's happening right now, um, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of dust in the air. But how I see it is we're all writing a story with our lives. We're all writing our own obituary. And each day is another sentence in it. And eventually, with your tour, Lexi, with the ending of Lawn Shop Books, I think there's a lot of questions at the moment, a lot of uncertainty. And that's good. That's exciting in a certain way. But I think in a year or two, people are going to look at this moment, and more so for the tour, but people are going to look at this and they're actually going to see it as an inspirational struggle. And they're going to see that all that opposition, all the challenges, the struggles, the uncertainties, and overcoming that is actually kind of like a Rocky movie, really.
Oh, I mean, like I definitely like I was heartbroken when I got the original message about um a long shot being done, and I was like right before I go on tour for this book, like I was like what am I gonna do? And I mean, like there were tears, there was stress, there was frustration. Like you can ask like my friends, like I was messaging them and I was like, and of course this happens. And like um but I really, really do like what you were saying in the concept of like taking it and looking at it more as like life bringing instead of something like ending. And it's like this will be the whatever amount of books I have at the end of this month, right? Like it was a month extension that I signed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever amount of books I have left over after this month will be it of this version of the Electra Complex. And I don't even know if I'm going to do a second edition or if I'm just going to let it be what it is. But it's the only time you'll be able to get it anymore is on my tour.
And
So,
similarly, not in solidarity, but just coincidentally, I'm unpublishing all my books on the 15th of this year.
oh,
And And I think in 2023, this is a year of conflict. It's a year of struggle. It's brutalist in the artistic sense. I feel like this year is an experiment in if destruction can be creative. Because we know creation is creative, but can you make art from destruction? And I truly think by 2025, for all three of us, people are going to look back on this and see it and think, holy shit. Like, I think this is
It
a
really
wild...
was Todd who wrote that book, Marie.
I didn't write the fucking book. I just like it. Yes, there's an artistic kindredship between myself and the writer. We are of this, we're cut from the same fabric, whatever. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to announce it. And I didn't want to do this. I was going to save for a special video, but if you have to bring it up, I am forming my own publishing house and publishing Al or Nothing.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, what's your company called, Todd?
Totally Dope Creations, TDC. And when people see the abbreviation TDC, they will associate it with quality. Unlike Long Shot Books, they see LSB, they think, oh, a lame, shitty business. They're going to see TDC, they're going to be Totally Dope Creations, quality, stamp of approval. What's the title of the book? Doesn't matter. Just charge my credit card. It's, so, Phoenix from the ashes. Sorry, Marine. I've moved on.
Totally Dorky Creations.
Totally Dope Creations. You misheard.
Dorky.
Oh, best of luck, Todd.
Dope. So,
anyway, the moral of this podcast, children, the takeaway is that you can always put your differences aside for the sake of a podcast.
Yes, and
Truth.
And I know people are going to be disappointed. They're going to be, wondering, like, Todd, why are you talking to this fucking animal who betrayed you? This piece of shit who doesn't even deserve jail time because we don't want to pay the taxes to provide for this thing. And,
oh my God.
Jesus was put on the cross for our sins. Every time that you touch yourself, every time that you say a curse word, every time that you hit dislike on one of my YouTube videos, he forgives you.
Oh my God.
I am acting out humility in the same fashion. I am similar to the last chapter of the last book I've written.
I'm cutting this speech off.
I am in the T-pose right now.
This is fucking equivalent to filming yourself giving a homeless person money.
Jesus.
Being like, look at how great I am for doing
Lexi,
this.
I appreciate your comment, but I'm praying right now. Jesus, I know how you felt on the cross. Right now, I am on a cross of my own. I'm feeling lashed and whipped. In this moment, I am Jesus Christ.
No.
Okay, prayer's done.
Alright, anyway.
Doesn't the saying go, we all have our own crosses to bear?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think mine's a little bit heavier, getting to the top of the hill.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Lexi had something to say.
With that pedestal you put yourself on, things probably,
You're probably dragging your pedestal behind you. That's probably what it's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that word means. I know that you're making fun of me for not knowing what that word means, but
So, I think I'm gonna call it a wrap. I've got to detach my human centipede blue gummy sharks and eat those.
Well, before the end of this, and I'll let Lexi get the final word, of course, but I want to say I am very thankful for the experience my participation in the Electric Complex has been. Speaking of art being life-giving, it has enriched my life. I'm proud to have been a part of it. I'm very happy, and I don't want to say I'm proud of you, because I think that almost seems as though it's talking down to someone. People take offense in that, but Lexi, I think with the growth that you've taken since the book's been published, since it was written, I think you should be proud of yourself. And Maureen, I think you should be very proud of yourself, despite our differences, for your work with Longshot Books. And I'm very happy to be recording with both of you tonight. I'm very thankful. I truly mean that for both of you. And
Yes.
I second that.
Yes, thank you, Lexi, so much for trusting us with this book. It's and I will second Todd and say it has been a really enriching experience in my life as well. And same with like getting the merchandise set up, like going step by step with the book. It was just an incredible experience from beginning to end, and I'm really glad to be here with you guys tonight too.
it was challenging
Yeah.
in the best way, setting the book up and doing it. It was
Right.
it pushed us in ways that I didn't expect, and I'm grateful for that. That's the best thing I could say
Right.
about a work of art. If it's not challenging, it's not worth it. Is truly how I feel.
I definitely agree with that. And I don't think I would have had it any other way. I think everything lined up the way it was supposed to, as far as the creation of this book and the people that I entrusted it with, being, you guys and everything. I think it was kind of meant to be. And I'm so happy that I had that opportunity with you guys. I'm happy that I still will be able to keep in touch with you guys, and that maybe we can create something new in the future.
And we will continue to be supportive of you in everything you do.
And I'll continue to be supportive of you guys too, Mom and Dad, if you ever make up. Please.
Yeah, Mom and Dad aren't getting back together.
Please. But so I guess ending the podcast, it would basically be that there is beauty in destruction, and there is life to be made out of the dead.